Greetings, everyone. This is Payman Lorenzo, your host of the Leaders World podcast. Today, I have part two of my wonderful conversation with my new great friend, Mr. Endre Hoffman, aka the Doctor of Self-Worth from Hungary. We had a beautiful, beautiful conversation. What was it? 1 or 2 weeks ago. It was so beautiful that he went so deep into his story of growing up in with a very strict and unsupportive father, and how that shaped up shaped him up personally and then his life. But then after a while, he realized, once he became more aware and awakened spiritually, that this was a blessing in disguise that allowed him to tap into his true destiny and to fulfill his mission in this lifetime. That was a very beautiful conversation. I recommend you guys watch it. There is one part, I'm gonna go off a tangent here, that I was rewatching it the other day, that I swear to you, Andre, even the second time I watched it, I was like, wow. And it said, when you're talking about your son playing football, and you said he's one of the most skillful players in the team, but he couldn't score a goal from midfield, which is unheard of. And then because he didn't trust his teammate, didn't trust himself, and then you went to your coach and asked, how can I help my son? And your coach asked you a question. It gave you goosebump, and I'm still giving you goosebump. He asked you, is his father scoring goals in life? And I said, holy
Oh,
smoke.
that was deep.
I
It
can see,
was a
I hope
knife.
you can see a goosebump right now,
It was a knife in my heart. I'm like,
Oh, yeah. In your
ooh,
soul, not just the heart, the soul. Wow,
it
thank you for
was
sharing it.
uh,
Yeah.
big time. But I mean, if you want, I could maybe go more into these generational patterns if that would lighten up or help some people to understand what could go on in their families. If you want me to do that.
Sure, let's do that. But before we start, I'd like to ask you a series of rapid fire questions to further get to know you as a person, as a man, as a human being. We're going to talk about your business and all that later on. But first, myself and my audience want to know, who's Andre as a person, as a man, as a human being. Ready?
Sure.
What makes you happy?
What makes me happy? Makes me happy is seeing the breakthroughs, the messages coming from my clients each day when they seem to attract impossible things into their life. Like that is really warming my heart.
Love that. What makes you smile?
What makes me smile is freedom, is to be able to in charge of my life and how I spend my time and how I see uh, my I could pour my heart out.
Beautiful. Now let's take the happiness factor a couple of notches higher. What makes your heart sing? What sets your soul on fire?
Well, what sets my soul on fire? What a question. Well, I love certain things. I have some passions like skiing. I love paragliding. But what I really love, and I could really include my family, is exploring and road trips. And again, terrible because I'm pushing people out of their comfort zones all the time. So road trips for me are about not knowing where we're going to sleep and what exactly is going to happen each day. So I always tell my children that, life is a journey where you cannot project exactly how things happen. And to prepare them, I love to be out of the comfort zone, sort of giving it over to God or whoever will take care of us, finding that new place to sleep with a caravan, or sometimes we went with a tent. And I'm a wild camper. I don't always look for official places, but it has, I think it prompted us the instinct, that survival, what skills to come up with solutions at times when you're wet or when you haven't found a place and you really need to now follow your instinct to find someone, to find some help, to find water. That sort of, that's the edge that I'm looking for in these trips.
Beautiful, beautiful. Love that. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, what makes you sad and angry?
Well, sad and angry. What a question. I did so much work on myself that I live in full acceptance. If something, then maybe unawareness, and unawareness that turns into aggressivity and harming others. That is where I would sometimes love to come in and interrupt or help, yet some people are so unaware that they are beyond help. That is sad.
I agree with you absolutely. Now, what would you say is your number one personal superpower?
What would be the number one person?
What's your number one personal superpower?
Oh, it's resilience. I seem to bounce back, and I have this. I believe one of the superpowers I have for my clients is this. Well, if it didn't work this way, then we'll try that way. But I never give up until they give up on themselves. And I always tell them, until you trust yourself and believe in yourself, you can always borrow my belief in you.
So if someone, I love this. So you said you won't give up on them until they give up on themselves. But what if they give up on themselves? Do you still hang on and persist and try to bring them back, or you just let them go? And how
I
do you make
had
the distinction? How do you make the distinction that when to go and reach out to them and when to just let them go and release them with love?
Yeah, what a deep question. Because I had a recent example. I had someone who decided not to show up on his sessions. And I said, well, I understand. We have set out a goal, and it was your goal. And I still nudge him every 3-4 months. I say, well, I'm still here. These sessions have been paid.
Sorry, and this is a paid client?
Yes.
Wow, even better. Okay.
So, but again, I could not deliver the results or the values, but unfortunately, if he is checking out, it is a hard boundary. I cannot save anyone. So I offered my help until it's received well. And if someone says, hey, I don't want change anymore, or they change their mind, or they change their commitment level, obviously at that level, there is nothing to do. But then remember that I believe human life is a massive coaching session. So things
Life
start
is a school.
things start to squash people. It is like school, and there will be lessons to come if they have not been able to resolve them. So I believe time as such works for them, and in that sense, maybe for me to help, because I accelerate change and I accelerate these transformations and realizations and learnings, so they wouldn't have to go in vicious circles and go through so much pain and struggle.
Beautiful. Just like the saying says, you can take a horse to the water, but you cannot make him drink. The horse has to drink it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
What would you say? What scares you?
What scares me? Well, what scares me? If my paraglider was to collapse at low, well, at low altitude, that would be scary, because then who knows what could happen. I normally have a reserve chute. I never had to apply that, but that's a bit of a scary thing. But luckily, paragliders are designed to save people's lives, and they are very, very forgiving until people observe those sort of 5-10 golden rules.
Sure.
So that scares me. Maybe death scares me, because I have so much to do. I believe I've taken on this wonderful identity. Now I'm finally becoming the person I was longing to become, and I would love to enjoy some time to help others and make a difference.
Beautiful. What is one thing that you didn't value before that you now value more and more?
Red wine.
I love that.
uh, probably openness of the mind. I was very opinionated, and I probably inherited it from my dad. And the last 20 years, I realized, well, those things that I knew for sure, they are really not definitely white or black, and there is gray in between. And when there is a change of perspective, change of viewpoint, then things are not so square anymore. There are so many interpretations to pretty much anything, and I could talk about the nature of the universe, black holes, consciousness. There's so much coming out these days that, I thought Newtonian physics, is real, and you know what? If they're still teaching it, I believe there's new physics out there, and I don't know why they are dumbing down generations about that old model of the world, which may not apply, or apply in a very narrow frame.
Because one of my hypotheses that they're doing that because that's what the outcome they want. They want to train people to be not thinking too much, but to just follow orders, That's it. There's so much that is being held, that is hidden from us about our history, about our capacities, about our origins, and so on and so forth. We can do an entire, not just podcast, an entire conference, an entire series of books, and what you document you about that, because that's a vast, vast, vast topic. Yeah. Now, tell us one thing that you didn't value before, but you're now valuing more and more. Other than red wine. No.
We have hard questions, to be honest.
Oh.
Didn't value before. I think family, and maybe more so my wife. It took time for me I never shared this before. It really took time for me to mature into being a father, being a husband. And I now understand, a bit late, but now I understand the impact I have brought to life in my children, and also, the quality of the relationship which I have or had with my wife, which could have been better if I was sort of sharper or faster with my own transformations.
Yes, life is a journey. We get there, and people, the most important people in our lives, help us get there. Beautiful. Now, when was the last time you had a very, 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 very strong and deep laughter? The type that when you laugh, your cheeks are hurting, you get stomach ache, almost tears of joy and happiness. When was the last time you had such an incredible laugh? Something that made you laugh that strongly?
Well, I don't remember. And I didn't prepare for these out of the blue questions. Well, it was funny. We bought these skis for my son, and I thought they were okay. And then I took him down probably 3-4 weeks back. He's a beginner. And these skis, probably they had been out in the sun. And the top of the skis started to crack off. And we went a few rounds, and his skis started to reduce in size. So obviously we got the new ones, but this was not expected. How could that happen? That materials, plastic, weak, and they just snap off. And And I said to him, now you can claim you have been an extreme skier where even your skis couldn't handle your skills, but obviously it was, well, lack of
Yeah.
quality
As
or too
long
old.
as safety is preserved, that would make a good, funny story. Yes, indeed. Let's move on. You like traveling, right?
Yes, one of my
Ah,
favorite
awesome.
pastimes.
Absolutely. We can do an entire episode just on traveling. We may do that another time. But I want to take you down a different type of traveling, down memory line. Go back to when you were growing up. You know, when we were kids, parents, relatives, neighbors, teachers always ask us, "Hey, Andre, what do you want to become when you grow up?" What was your answer to that as a young boy?
Well, this question is powerful because I've seen, when I was a child, I've seen these these vehicles, long trucks. So that was very exciting for me. I was excited about heroes.
Mm,
Maybe not an accident. I have a heroes podcast, but at that time I was more so excited about firefighters or maybe policemen who have been, putting themselves out on the line daily and deliver amazing results and justice, all of those things. And you know what happened?
mm.
I had been a firefighter in Australia, in
Wow.
in RFS, which is it's a mostly voluntary organization, the biggest one on earth. It's called Rural Fire Services of New South Wales.
Wow.
And I was driving trucks for 7 or 8 years, and eventually I went into pretty massive size to 75 tons. And maybe what I found out that those childhood dreams were, I thought at the time, oh, I have to chase my childhood dreams. But I realized when I was doing these things that this is not it. Like I had certain experiences and I had some fun, but then I run out of steam.
Mm,
And so the signs started to come back as maybe this is not your life's journey. This is not why you are here. And then the hard laboring came to find out. So that's the story of my childhood dreams.
cool. Thank you. Growing up, what was your relationship with school? Did you love school or did you hate school?
I hated it. I was counting the hours and the days, how many days are left. And I could sometimes tell you how many days, how many hours, and how many years to go. Because Central Europe has this so-called Prussian school system. It's very suppressive. And unfortunately, motivation is fear.
Mm.
The tagline says, if you don't get good grades, you're going to sweep the streets.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
I've heard it 1,000 times. And then teachers are really strict, I have to say. And I just could not enjoy it. And then because I believe the school system is so out of date,
Mm.
most of the time in my young age, they were always testing me on, oh, do I know this by heart from the book?
Mm.
And these were poems, all those things. And I was not good at memorizing exact words or exact texts. So for me, it took 10 times more to memorize things that they put me, they give me better grades for. But absolutely, it is zero reflection on how on either happiness or life skills. I think it was so irrelevant. And this is why my children are homeschooled, because I didn't want to push them into this so-called grading system where life skills are not measured at all. For example, group work as such, or asking for help. We were punished at times to ask for help. And I said to myself, if this was school, and I did do it, and it was 12 years in Central Europe plus 3 years university or postgrad, I see no point.
Exactly. Unless someone wants to get into a career that they actually need credentials like law, medicine, or whatever. Other than that, if you're just going just to get a general bachelor's of humanities or psychology or whatever, don't waste your time. That's what I've been telling everybody. Much better for you to take that money, learn a skill, start a business. So even worse, even if you don't want to do that, learn a trade, become a blue collar tradesman. These guys are making, I don't know about Hungary, but in Canada and the US, those guys are making incredible amount of monies because the world will always need electricians, plumber, all of those works. People need them no matter what the economy.
Love it, love it. This is such an insightful uh, opinion that you just shared. I believe the new school should be, and it's from my mentor. He says, well, you want to have education based on results, relevant short courses. You don't need 4 or 5 years to learn skills. You need probably 3, 6 months, 9 months, and you want to apply those things with a mentor. So you're not on the very, very long learning curve, but there is someone who has done it, who had been there, who got the results that you're probably looking for, so you can shorten the curve to be professional. And then when you got there, then you can get a specialty or a niche, and then you can serve that niche and set your prices. It's now
Absolutely.
that's pretty much it. You need to take care of your mindset. You need to have someone from the industry, and then keep working at it. And it's not even time anymore. It might just take you a year or two.
Absolutely. Um, I'm not very familiar with the education system in Hungary, but in Canada and the US, it's so disconnected. It's in some way, it's even university system is like a scam. I can't tell you how many people I know who spent 5, 6, 7 years in school to get the degree we're supposed to get and end up with $100,000, $200,000 debt before they even start their life. They crippled for life. How can you move on from that? And it's impossible. So yes, it's very painful. Even me, I graduated from college. I have never, my diploma is the most expensive and most useless piece of paper I've ever had in my life. It's not in my, yeah, I think it's either somewhere in the basement of my family's house back in Canada or on the wall just getting, collecting dust. I mean, why? I would have been much better off taking a fraction of that, travel, start a business, learn a skill. Worst comes to worst, I become independent. I learn a skill. And employees now, they look for people who actually travel, start a business, learn how to, because learning to run a business is not easy. It takes a lot of knowledge. You're wearing all the hats yourself. But what if your business works? Then you may not never need to get a job. So this is why for me, I tell people don't go to university unless you're dead set to become a doctor, and finance or something that you need actual credentials. If not, two options: travel, learn a skill, start a business, or go the blue collar trade.
Wonderful, as you. My mentor goes and is teaching in Macquarie University, Sydney, entrepreneurship, and he said to me quite a few times he went to see the department there, and most of the teachers had never run a business. He says like how could they even pay $50,000 each semester? So it's 5 years. So they are down, down in the hole, $250,000. And then year 5, he's teaching year 5, he goes, big audience, and he's asking them, guys, put your hand up if you run a business. It's entrepreneurship diploma year 5. And out of 200-300 people, there's 4 or 5 hands. And he's normally breaking the barrier. He says, well, leave now and launch a business, because you will learn a lot more than watching YouTube videos and listening to teachers who had never run a business.
There's a funny quote. It's not funny. It's actually sad. It says, "Why would I pay, just like you said, $50,000 a semester to learn from someone was getting paid, say, $60,000 a year, who's never run a business, to run out of business. I would much rather pay someone who's actually running a business $10,000 to teach me one-on-one or whatever, to learn directly, or even take those. And also another thing is, most young adults, kids that finish high school, at least in North America, they have no idea what they want to do with life. Let them. If I was in power, I would make mandatory after high school for all kids to go travel for a year or two, so they can really experience life, accumulate experiences, become more mature, have a better understanding of what they want, so that then when they go to university, they're very motivated, they have a clear idea of what to do, and then they will not end up with tons of money in debt for no reason.
Yeah, you've got it. And I would just add that if you want a mentor or business coach, then you want to check out the results before you sign up. So it's not just someone who runs a business, but who runs a business successfully with excellent results. That, I think, is a powerful detail to
Absolutely.
get onto the fast lane of
Absolutely.
running businesses.
Totally, absolutely. You mentioned something else that we can do, and we will probably do an entire episode on that, because that's very key, and that is homeschooling kids. I don't have kids yet, but that's, if I had kids, I would definitely homeschool them. I'm really glad that I don't have kids right now in Canada, because of the horrible things they poisoning the minds of young kids in Canada and the US with all this nonsense. I'm really concerned about my nephew, especially the two young boys. And for me, I know for a fact that if I were to go back to Canada, I would homeschool my kids, because I don't want them to get poisoned and corrupted with those nonsenses, you know? So we're going to talk about, we can do an entire episode just on homeschooling, but share with us just one or two tips, or maybe for parents that are listening now, that are considering, that are sick and tired of their kids being, their minds being destroyed and all that. What would be the number one advice would give them to homeschool their kids?
Well, a big one is to make space for it.
Mm,
You want to break out of a job to be able to do it in the first place. So if you have someone around, family, and you have support, then maybe you can absorb homeschooling. But you've got to break out of the matrix to cater for your kids, to be able to even be for them. And I think homeschooling is slightly different in different countries. I found out in Europe there is a national standard and you have to write your tests, whereas in the Anglo and Commonwealth countries like US, Canada, Ireland, Australia is quite lenient. So they trust the parents. They could
really?
sort of
I
write
didn't
the
know that. Okay.
standard or learning plan, and the parents are once we were able to evaluate their year. And I think that's where the freedom is, when you are not held onto national standards that are irrelevant. I mean, then if you are pushed into the same standard, then what's the point of giving your child time to do the same bloody thing at home that they would do in school? Yeah, obviously it's a better environment if it's toxic,
Mm,
but think about this. If you put yourself into situations where you have leverage, this is what happened to us. There was a teacher in Ryde, Sydney, who had anger attacks, and she was taking it out on my son sometimes. She said, "Oh, you're dumb." And my son has heard it a few times because he was slower finishing some exercises.
mm,
I don't even know what it was, but now this is a massive red flag,
sure.
because this is maybe one principle I want to leave with you, is that up to the age of 14, 15, 16, what happens around your children will be installed. They are in their unconscious mind. There is no filters. So if an authority tells them you're no good, you're not going to amount to anything, they will believe it, because they
Mm,
have no critical factor in their mind. So if you allow that to happen, well, I have to challenge you.
sure.
Then what kind of parent are you?
Absolutely. The learning, the education side, I can see that. But one question that comes to mind is, what about the social interaction? Because that's important. If you homeschool your kids at home, they don't have this opportunity to mingle and play with other kids and form friendships. How do you compensate for that if you homeschool your kids at home?
Yeah, it's a good question. In Australia, what we found, they had wonderful homeschooling communities where you can.
Ah,
So Friday was kind of physical education day. They were out doing sports for 3 or 4 hours, and then every week they had one half-a-day event where we could participate. And then, they came from all over the place. You could sort of, and it was cheap too. Why? Because obviously all the other kids are in school. So imagine, a place like, where they could jump around, and all of these places are trying to get clients. Now that's the time when homeschooling groups can come in at a very affordable rate. So we found that, the suburbs ended up meeting or other parts of the city, and then the kids had some fun together. So we basically have exposed them to different kind of communities, scouts, sport, and 2 types of sports. So that's the time for you to get them out of the house, because obviously houses are a dangerous place because there are too many screens these days, and it really helps if you get them in
absolutely.
communities.
I wonder if there is any networks or communities of parents for homeschooling. They can all come together and they can create their own independent schools so the kids can have this ongoing, consistent social interaction, learn the things that actually do matter that kids will need in their lives without all the negative brainwashing. And I wonder if that's even possible if the government and power that be would allow people to basically create their own schools. Have you heard anything about that?
Well, there are lots of examples, and I think it's already happening,
Hmm.
as there are, even as we looked around in Southern Europe. There are, I've met this wonderful community from the UK. There's about 20 families from the UK. They don't even care that, the school they have sort of founded is not approved and not recognized. They just decided to live through these villages, and they take the kids down, and they
Huh?
don't mind if it's official or not. They decided to have that community. Kids come together, they play, but there are other ones that are sort of are approved. Plon Lara is one of them. Of course, better types of schools are sort of the Steiner schools or Waldorf schools, where there is, let's say, there's more humanity. So there are a lot of options available these days, and even more if you start searching for it. But communities are on Facebook, I believe. So
Mhm.
what you want to do is search for groups, and there is a lot of information out there, because there are a lot of parents are worried about what's going on in traditional school systems. So they are always discussing, they're always giving tips, they're always open to have conversations and share their experiences.
Beautiful. And for the schools that are, one last question on this topic. This is a fascinating topic. For the kids that are being educated through non-recognized education system, whatever, what happens when they reach, say, the age of 18, 19, and want to go to university? If the previous education is not recognized, how are they going to get access to university and beyond if they want actual credentials after?
I think we talked about universities, right? So
Hmm.
if 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 these kids want to get into universities, obviously they need to catch up on the
Yeah.
recognized schools.
Say if the
Yet,
kid wants to pursue a career in law or medicine, for which you actually do need credentials, how do they bridge the gap between this to this?
then it's a gap. It's a gap to
Mm.
close. It's a gap to fix later on. I thought that we started to go down this path, and if my kids started to change their mindset, they said, "Well, I want to learn this or that," then I would fully support them.
Or perhaps
It-
in those school, they would put the emphasis on being independent thinking, and also entrepreneurship. So from an early age, they're introduced to running their own business. Makes sense.
yes, or do projects, which
Mm,
is putting them into a place to make decisions, to engage, to, create some value for others, even if you are not paid yet. But start to think of
think
what life
outside the
could be.
box. Yes.
Hmm.
Love that. Wow, powerful. Awesome. Speaking of school, what was your favorite subject and your least favorite subject?
It was least favorite.
The most and the least.
PE, physical education. I was doing sports when I was young. That was my favorite. And probably chemistry.
Mm,
Chemistry was not my, and biology. Biology was more interesting, but chemistry, the formulas, and it was just a waste of time for me.
I
Didn't
know.
learn much.
I hear you. Imagine that if we were in the same class in grade 10 or grade 11, what kind of student were you? What kind of boy were you? Were you the shy one, the nerdy type, the quiet one, the superstar, the chatterbox? What kind of guy were you back in, say, grade 10, 11?
Very shy.
Mm,
I was very, very shy, and I was hiding. I never wanted to be in front of people. Uh, insecure inside, uh, and then doing everything I could in sports. That was my sort of escape, and I got some results in sports,
mm.
but probably I was very low self-confidence. So I was the listener of the speakers, not or a follower, so to speak.
All right. So in high school and in college, university, were you popular with the ladies?
It wasn't going well. These insecurities, lack of confidence
Mm,
was affecting my relationship massively for another decade after that.
sure. How did you meet your wife?
I met my wife in New Zealand in early 2005, I think, and she went there with another partner. That didn't work out well, and we met in New Zealand. She's from Hungary, so
Oh, okay.
it's quite a story. It's quite a story, and
I
then
know. Wow.
around the world to some countries. I traveled a lot more on my own. And we've been together ever since. We have two children, one born in Hungary, one born in Australia.
What made you realize that she's different and she's the one?
Well, I think it's a whole 1 hour conversation. Because normally what people tend to attract, and that applies to me too, I attracted my childhood wounds,
Ah,
my
yes, yes, yes.
insecurity, lack of confidence. She's the smallest child in a family of 5. So again, it's reflections, and at times we attract the parts of ourselves we have disowned to have someone to remind us what we had lost. So, well, relationships are so important to be a factor in massive
Hmm.
transformation if they are used well, if the messages are learned and the lessons are taken.
I I agree that this would be a more fitted for a in-person conversation over a beautiful bottle of red wine. But in a nutshell, how soon after you started dating her, you realized that, hey, she's the one?
Well,
Was there
I
so
was
and was there a specific instance, specific moment, or something that made you realize, hey, this is it. She's the one. Or was it something progressive over time?
probably it was progressive, and I had to test her as such, whether
Mm,
she allow me to travel if I want to. And then, this relationship almost fell apart. But then she allowed me to discover the world, which she sometimes did not join me. And probably that told me, even though she wasn't kind of happy that I was gone, I always came back. So I thought, well, if a relationship could be not controlling, not, setting these hard boundaries, then she could be the one for me, where I can be myself, not feeling restricted. That was a big one for me.
absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Now, what was the first? Tell us about the very first job you had, and do you remember how much you get paid the first time you worked?
Yes, I remember it was, I was working for a bank,
Mm-hmm.
PNH Bank in Hungary.
Mm-hmm.
I was paid about 380 Australian dollars a month.
Wow. That's a lot of money.
It's
It's a
was
fortune. No, I'm joking. Yeah, wow.
and
Okay.
it's 1998, and I was making a lot of money for that bank because I was actually trading bonds and government securities. So
Wow.
I was so out of balance.
Was that a full-time job or part-time
It was
or
full time,
student?
full time.
Holy,
And I think 2 years after, they have sort of rearranged salaries like six,
yeah.
7 times because it was not
300
reflect.
a month. That's even less than slavery, full-time, especially for a bank.
Yes, that's why I left, because they
Yeah.
told me in 6 months it will be taken care of. And it was August. And I said, well, you promised something, you didn't deliver, I'm done and gone.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
I've become a fixed income broker. I earned, a lot more. But
Mm,
they did fix those salaries, I think, 1.5 or a year after. So people got a company car and a proper salary. So it happened. Bit too late for me.
mm. Let's switch gears and move forward. Tell us about your path from the moment you left school to now. What would you say your path was more like? Once you're into one lane, it was straightforward, smooth sailing. You were set for life. Was it more like turns and twists, like a roller coaster?
Well, turns and twists. Always chasing something that I thought is going to the holy grail, and
Mm,
it didn't work. I left banking. I thought, well, I use these 5-year terms to do something different, and I knew it's painful to let go a well-paid job, which was, highly regarded in Hungary at the time. But I said, well, I want to see the world and see what else is there for me. I moved to Ireland first. I ended up working on production lines. Can you believe that? After banking,
yeah, wow. Big change.
then I realized then this English speaking world is something I like. And the twist and turn came from, I think it was 2002 or 3, 2001. We went to see Lord of the Rings, the first one. And I was asking the questions, where is this movie shot? I mean, this is beautiful. And we realized it was New Zealand. And as you know, Ireland hasn't got, let's say, the best climate. We
That's an
decided to,
understatement. Yes.
we decided to check out New Zealand. That's
Wow.
how it started. Bought a fairly, promotion ticket to New Zealand, and we thought, well, maybe stay there for 3 or 6 months. And ended up staying for 6, 7 years, and that's where I got separated from my partner within 3 months of landing in New Zealand, which was a very hard journey in itself, because we planned a life together. We meant to get married, all of those things. So rejection patterns were controlling my lifetime.
So you met with your wife, if I understand correctly. You said you met her in Ireland and then you guys moved to Australia, then New Zealand.
No, that was a girlfriend, and
Ah, okay, okay, okay. My
so
bad.
I had serious plans. I was sort of
Mm,
27-year-old, and that didn't work out. So for the next 2, 3 years, I was on my own, and that's when I started riding bikes around New Zealand, paragliding, climbing mountains, and wonderful road trips again. And I was hoping, one day I will meet someone who will,
So
for my heart.
So you said you were making plans with a girlfriend back that you met back in Ireland to build a life together?
No, we went from Hungary out to Ireland. We lived
Ah,
together then we moved to New Zealand, and then she kind of left me because
oh, okay.
it wasn't
Mm,
easy, and she
mm.
found someone, and she thought, well,
Oh, I see. Okay.
it's a lot easier doing it that way. So
Mm.
for me, it was a very hard journey,
Uh,
end of the world, far away from my family. And I was kind of focusing on, well, this is a wonderful country. I came here to see it, to have fun. And I started to do all of these crazy sports, which sort of kept me at bay. And I was still looking for my best options to stay in the country, because I only had a 6-month visa. And that's a whole other story, how I was able to even stay in the country. I had to find a job in finance that was relevant to my skills or qualifications. So it was very, very twisting and turning story how I ended up working for GE, the American giant,
mm.
and eventually staying in the country when I received a phone call the very last day of my visa that, hey, we will extend your visa, but we didn't yet send the letters. So
And you hadn't booked your ticket yet? You waited till the last minute? Holy.
it
Wow.
was very, I should have pretty much prepared and paid for a ticket to leave the country, which I didn't. So I would have been thrown out pretty
Talk
much.
about stressful, huh? Wow.
People always say, like, in Central, you just get in the car and drive to another country in 2 hours, but it's
You can do that in New Zealand because you're surrounded by water, you know?
yeah, it was very, very hairline. I was
Wow.
driving these for a while. I was driving. They called it's called Super Shuttle. Super Shuttle has multiple drop-offs and multiple pickups in Auckland, and taking people to the airport and back. And imagine I was driving one of those, with a trailer behind it, and I had no idea about the city. I had the street directory on my lap, and then I was expected to talk to the clients, to make, to chat. And, I had the radio with the Kiwi accent. It's terrible. I was so petrified every day that, I go into the street, I can't reverse out. And I had these A, B, C, D, E, F, G points to pick up passengers, then chase them up, then even get to the airport. And some of them were really angry at the time because, you want to get to the airport in time. And deadlines were always quite steep.
See, that's a perfect segue. There's a saying that says, change your story, change your life. And by story, I mean what we tell ourselves all along inside our head. So when you enter your some of your lowest, darkest, most stressful, challenging times of your life, how did you change your story internally inside your head to change your reality externally?
Well, my idea was it won't last forever, and hopefully there is something better to come.
Mm.
And I always then I was sort of trying to get my visa sorted. Then when I realized, oh, now I can stay in the country, I can move around, then I decided, well, I don't really like finance. I already left years ago, so I will do that again. Then I went to the transport industry. I was driving forklifts and air freight containers, because I knew this job I would be replaceable. And I said to myself, then I will be possibly look for more answers traveling around Asia, looking for spiritual gurus, and hopefully I find answers about my life, because my life did not make any sense. My life was trouble here, not understanding what am I doing even in New Zealand. But I thought, well, if I travel enough, maybe just maybe I find out some answers. And then I introduced a new rule. I said, well, I will work 9 months each year, and then I will either get an unpaid leave for 3 months, or I'll be fired. And when I had those general skills, I could get another job. And that's what usually happened, because, you know, employers didn't like that question. But I said to myself, well, if I had gone this far, then there's no one to restrict my freedom.
Beautiful. Wow. Wow, what a story. So when you were still in Hungary, when you decided to go first to Ireland and from Ireland all the way to New Zealand, Australia, what was your family, your mother, your father, your siblings, your relatives were thinking about you? Were you thinking that this guy has gone crazy, he lost his marble, or were they supportive? What were
Well,
they thinking?
there was this pain that I was carrying with. This relationship has never been resolved between my father and myself. So probably I shared this before, but
Yes.
I needed to find the most remote place from Europe, probably to feel safe from my dad, and maybe to feel not controlled by whatever he was doing, because he was triggering me all the time. Yet, as I said before, I picked up the unconscious patterns, and they were his voices were in my head, and unfortunately I was beating myself up. I was asking wrong questions. I was still in this scarcity mindset, in this, oh, there is not enough, I have to work hard. These were my childhood patterns. And when I had any issues in life, my escape route, oh, that's okay, I just have to work 6-7 days a week, and then I don't have time to think about it. Like the avoidance. I didn't know that it could be someone who would help me to resolve these. And that was my fix, my therapy. Or I said to myself, well, because I didn't like the job, I said, well, now I work I don't know how many months without stopping. I said, well, now I deserve my rest. Then my new avoidance was, okay, now I go traveling. And I went to wonderful places where you are in Southeast Asia. And I kind of loved it. And I took some notes and I was reflecting on myself, yet I was still in the same vicious circle. And I think I was bathing myself in the admiration of all of these people that look how far he is getting, what a wonderful journeys he's taking. And I honestly, I love those journeys. But inside, I said, what? Why am I here? What am I doing? I had these unanswered, massive question marks in my head constantly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. What a story. Let's wrap it up for today for part 2. There's so much more we can unpack next time. And once again, if someone wants to connect with you, what's the best way to do so?
Easiest is my website, www.doctorofselfworth, that's DOCTOR of selfworth.com, or just look for hashtag Doctor of Self-Worth and you'll probably find yourself in one of my social channels.
Beautiful. Love that. We'll put that in the show note. Listen, Endre, I salute you. You truly do the heart. Keep shining your light. Keep blessing the world with your presence, your impact, with your gifts. Stay safe, stay awesome. God bless you, brother. And I'm really looking forward for part 3 of our beautiful ongoing conversation. Have a wonderful day, as we say back home in Canada. Have a fantabulous rest of your day, and talk to you very soon, my friend. Take care.
Thanks very much. I
You're
wish you
welcome.
guys a good journey. Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.